Hey everybody, and welcome back to my top 100 board games of all time. We're into the best of the best now, and we'll be talking about games 30 through 21. But before we get started on the games, I want to give a shout out to the show's sponsor, Kienda.co.uk, who are my go-to online retailer. And if you use the link in the show notes or the QR code, then you can get 5% off your first order. Additionally, be sure to check out my new game, THALAMUS. This is a 2 to 4 player abstract strategy game that's lightning fast with a small footprint. And if you send me an email on the below email address, I will get a copy sent out to you. But let's get started. At number 30, I have Condottiere. So this is a card-driven war game that's continuing to climb for me. So this is the highest it's placed yet. And on paper, there's a lot of things here that I didn't think would work for me because it's quite a swingy and wacky game, but the framework of the game really does bring that to a new level really, and makes the gameplay really sophisticated, because it's not like you can just keep on playing your best cards again and again to try and win these battles. You need to pace yourself very carefully because it's quite rare that you'll replenish your hand. So again, you need to make sure that you're not spending all your cards because you're likely going to win that battle, but you'll lose the following battles. And strategic positioning on the board can be so important because one of the winning conditions is to, I think it's either control 5 regions anywhere on the board or control 3 adjoining regions. So again, position is so important. I love how different these cards are and how quickly they can throw the game on its head. Like for example, one card might say, make every single card in the game worth strength 1, or get rid of all the strongest cards, and so on. So lots you need to weigh up here, and it's all about playing the right card at the right time. So that is Condottiere at number 30. At number 29, I have Capital Lux 2 Generations. So this is a spin on the blackjack style of game where you are aiming towards a particular number. Like in blackjack, you're aiming towards 21. This one, you have a variable and changing target, as players are not only playing cards in front of themselves, but also changing that target by playing cards into the capital in the center of the table. And every time you play a card in that capital, you're going to get a special ability, which can be quite subtle, such as maybe drawing a card, but there's a lot of manipulation you can do as well by swapping cards around and so on. It's such a tense game because you need to time things just right, because sometimes you're forced to play cards down if you're caught short. And lovely amount of variability here as well, because there's several different modules you can plug in to change what the city does. So every game feels that a little bit more different. Lightning fast, a good drafting system, again tons of variability, a brilliant card game, one of the best ever made. That is Capital Lux 2 Generations at number 29. At number 28, I have Rumble Nation. This one's been on the list for a few years now, but it is continuing to climb, much like Condottiere. This one is an area control game that's actually very light on the rules overhead. You're simply rolling dice. There's 3 dice, and then you are going to divide those dice out into 2 groups. You've got a single die and a pair of dice, and then the 2 dice are going to determine which region you can deploy into, and the single die is going to show how many troops you can deploy into that region. So on a 1 or a 2, you deploy 1 troop. A 3 and a 4, it's 2, and a 5 and a 6, it'll be 3 troops. And that's pretty much the crux of the game. You're just trying to have the most cubes in all the regions to score points. But the twist of the game is that once everybody's deployed all of their troops onto the board, there'll be this really cool scoring resolution where every region will score 1 at a time. But once you score a region, whoever won that region from lowest to highest will deploy more troops into the adjacent regions as long as they're controlling those regions. So it has this real kind of domino effect where if you start low and then slowly creep up the board, you can build up these huge armies to control those really high scoring regions. It's a genius design. It should be in everybody's collection, in my opinion. It's that good. That is Rumble Nation at number 28. At number 27, I have a much heavier Euro strategy game with Maracaibo. So over the years, Maracaibo has definitely kind of pulled ahead of the pack to become my Alexander Pfister game. I like all of his games in general, but this one seems to borrow all the best bits from his games into one really nice harmonious package. So this one, it has the kind of rondel system, a bit like Great Western Trail, where you're visiting different locations as you go and building them up. But I like the extra wrinkles to the game with the multi-use card system, where you can use these cards as special powers, but you can also use them as like goods or resources to complete missions and quests. And you can also kind of invest or build up your reputation with these different factions to get more end game scoring abilities, a bit like Mombasa. So again, I like the way it's cherry picked all my favourite bits from his games. It's so much fun. Again, I love the hand management in this game, and there's even a cool kind of campaign scenarios that you can go through, which are subtle, but they do add a little bit more energy and a bit more interest into each game if you want a good amount of progression. And it's just a really well executed Euro that's, again, got so many different things going on, but it all boils it down to this very simple rondel system. Brilliant Euro. That is Maracaibo at number 27. At number 26, I have the Castles of Burgundy. So super popular Stefan Feld dice-driven Euro, as you are rolling dice and then using those dice to draft tiles from a communal board and then kind of place those tiles onto your personal board to trigger special abilities. Lots of different routes to victory here. So are you going to build up these farms by compounding your scores by collecting the same type of animal? Are you going to collect different building types to get you lots of different abilities? Are you going to prioritize initiative by climbing up the boat track? And you kind of need to dabble in all of these things, but I like the way that you can tailor make your strategy by drafting these yellow tiles that will synergize with everything else. Such a smooth system, just using those dice to draft what you want. A good amount of mitigation tool as well through these workers. And I like the way that you have to kind of keep a few workers in your back pocket so that you're not always strictly restricted to the dice that you've rolled. This one's blown up to enormous popularity, and rightly so, because it's one of the best board games ever made. So that is the Castles of Burgundy at number 26. At number 25, I have In the Year of the Dragon. So this is another Stefan Feld game, but it could not be more different to a game like the Castles of Burgundy, which is what we'd call a point salad, where you get points for everything. This one, getting points out of this game is like squeezing blood out of a stone. It's very tough and a very punishing game, and recently it did come number 1 on my top 10 most punishing games list. So this one, you are basically trying to weather this storm by going through this year, and each month and you'll be hit with a new kind of catastrophe, which could be like starvation or disease, and you need to make sure that you have the right people in your little tableau, your little village, to deal with those disasters. So for example, if you know that a big kind of famine is going to come up, you need to make sure that you're stockpiling food by by collecting those cooks and exploiting their abilities, and then harnessing that food for the right time. But once maybe you're past those disasters of the famine, you might want to start focusing on something else to prepare for the future, and even get rid of those cooks that you do not need anymore. I don't think there's a game out there that has more important turn order. This one is so important to be first each round, or at least in the top 2, because you're going to have first dibs on the tiles that you pick from, which means you can do certain abilities. And if you want to go to the same space as somebody else, then you need to pay money, and money in this game is extremely tight, and another one of the disasters, because again, you need money to pay the taxes, which might come up someplace in the year. So lots going on here. It really is a game of attrition. You need to weather that storm, and you need to be very careful about how you go about things. But such a clever design, and a truly unique one. I think unique is an overused word in the board game space, but I think In the Year of the Dragon, there isn't really anything else I can compare it to, but it's a fantastic game, but not for everybody, so please do bear that in mind. That is In the Year of the Dragon at number 25. At number 24, I have the third Stefan Feld game in a row with Bora. This is one of his older games, another dice-driven Euro and a dice placement game, so it does have this kind of worker placement system where you're using dice to take these actions. But the twist on the game is that, generally speaking, the higher numbers will give you more powerful actions, but they're a lot less flexible, because if somebody uses say a high-value die on a particular worker placement spot, then all the future players have to go lower than that number. So obviously the lower numbers are going to be much more flexible, because you can have much more freedom to do the actions that you actually want to do. The actions are pretty simple in their own right. You get some kind of coverage on this little map, collecting resources. You are going to be collecting kind of male and female, the kind of villagers to give you special abilities, a little bit of area control going on. My favourite thing about this game is actually the mission system, where at any time you have a couple of these tiles active at any time. They're very small, very minor missions to complete, have these types of jewellery or have presents here and so on. And you want to be making sure that each round you're completing one of those objectives to keep it flowing, to make sure that you're always getting new missions in to get as many points as you can. So I love that kind of pacing and strategizing on what to prioritize first. Great game. This one has been reprinted. I think it's called Cusco now. I've not tried that one and I don't know what the differences are. But for me, I'm more than happy with the original Bora Bora. It is a fantastic Euro. So that is Bora Bora at number 24. At number 23, I have Chin. So this is a super simple tile placement game by Rainer Knizia, where you're placing these domino-shaped tiles onto this really large map. And whenever you create a region of the same colour, of at least 2 squares, then you'll put a pagoda down, and the objective of the game is to try and shed your pagodas before anybody else. But there are kind of encroachment rules where you can encroach your region onto somebody else's and swallow up their region and steal their pagodas from them. And you can even kind of develop onto the cities, and if you have the most of your pagodas touching that city, or most of your tiles touching that city, then you'll also take control of that city. So it has a bit of area control going on at the same time. A very dynamic, super smooth and easy to play. You can just sit back and relax and play this one. But it's all about efficiency and trying to exploit each placement to the max, because normally the differences between the winner and the loser here is very tight. So again, those micro decisions are going to be the difference. But I love the way this one works. There's no bloat on it at all. Streamlined to the core, and I don't think I've ever had a bad game of Chin. Just a great design. That is Chin at number 23. At number 22, I have Brussels 1893. Such a well-rounded Euro with worker placement as well as area control, a bit of tableau building as well. This one, I love the way that the worker placement mechanisms and the area control mechanisms are so well blended together, because basically your worker placement spots are on this grid, and whenever you take an action, obviously not only will you place a worker there and get that action, but you will also contribute towards 2 different majorities. So, for example, you're trying to have the most of your worker, or the money you put with your workers, in a certain column, which will give you some special cards. But also you are trying to create squares of your workers, or have the majority of those squares, to get some victory points as well. But I love the way that you can kind of, again, tailor make your strategy here by investing in different things, climbing tracks that might increase the yield of your buildings, or increase the yield of your area majorities, or your characters that you're collecting. And there's even some little wrinkles you can do when you collect these cards and tuck it under your player board to get some points for different things as well. Again, lots of things going on here, but it's so easy to explain and all boiled down to a couple of very simple mechanisms, and it's just so well polished. So that is Brussels 1893 at number 22. And the final game for this episode at number 21, I have Newton. So Newton has obviously become one of my favourite Euros over the years, and it's a game that's not often talked about, so I do think this one's underrated in terms of its popularity, but it's such a nice card-driven Euro as you are playing these cards on your player board to get certain abilities, and these abilities are pretty simple in their own right, travelling around this map, climbing tech trees, getting money, those very simple things you'd expect from a Euro. But again, I love the way that everything in this game is harmonized and the way that you generate points, because basically this game on your player board, you have these bookshelves or these bookcases which you're trying to fill up with knowledge, and whenever you can complete rows or columns on your bookcase, then you'll start generating points as a kind of a passively at the end of each round. So it's a bit of a race aspect to this as well, to get your motor spinning so that you start generating those points as soon as possible. But you do need to visit the right places to get that right knowledge. You need to have enough of the right cards, you get your right books in the right places as well. Lots of combos, good technologies you can invest in, and all in all, it's just such a fun game. And there's actually quite a lot of content for this one as well. So you have some good variability with the different boards you can play with, different decks of cards you can play with. And this game should be up there with the most popular Euros, in my opinion. It's that good. So that is Newton at number 21. So there we have it. That concludes another video. We're very nearly finished now, and this has taken way longer than I had wanted it to, but hey, there it is. But if you have enjoyed the video, please be sure to hit like and subscribe to the channel and check out my other content too. But for everybody else, I'll see you next time on Chairman of the Board.